everybody. It is the Mod Squad of YouTube and other places. Once again, we're here for another Jerry Lewis roundtable discussion. I'm Audi, owner and operator of Modern Retro Radio. I am joined by a very attractive and lovely Jerome Littlefield. Wow, you're very lovely, Jerome. Otherwise, also known as Classic Cat, who's also an air talent of Modern Retro Radio and production assistant and social media coordinator and girlfriend of Victor. Okay, it's still on, right? Y'all are still a thing.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So, and of course, the director to the stars, Morty S. Tashman, the one and only. Hi, Tish. Hi, Thad.
Hello.
Oh, okay, and
Hello.
the focus for this Jerry Lewis discussion is going to be his TV work as an actor and director. We're going to pretty much cover the 50s through the 80s or 50s through the 90s because he did some stuff in the 90s, but some stuff in the 80s that we're going to talk about, and a lot of 60s stuff. So, what's the first project that we want to talk about?
Well, let's talk a little bit about. We're going to save the Colgate Comedy Hour episodes for another time because that's a whole thing. But yeah, let's talk about the Jerry Lewis.
Well, speaking of that, can I mention that I recently got those DVDs of it's like 8 or 9 episodes of hand-picked Colgate Comedy Hour episodes that I got for Christmas, and it's like all the stuff that I was hoping would be on there, plus other stuff, and they're full length, including all these horribly, wonderfully cheesy live commercials that they did and all that, you know.
I love the Palmolive soap ones that are.
Yes, Palmolive was one, and
Colgate.
And Colgate, yeah. Oh my God, there was one Colgate commercial where a guy is walking his date to the door after a date, and he asks for another date, but she's like, she doesn't want to, and she just basically tells him that she tells him she won't go out with him. Oh my God, I can't remember what she put it, but she just basically said, go to a dental hygienist and then you'll find out why we won't have another date. I can't believe it.
Please go to a dental hygienist. I know, it was so awkward. That was really funny. But yeah, the Jerry Lewis episodes where he finally went solo, 1957 through 1960. So it wasn't like a set show. They were just a bunch of specials.
Yeah. And
basically he was trying to prove all of what he could do in those shows, I think. And, sometimes he got criticized for, hey, you shouldn't do everything and try to just focus on one thing. But yeah, he's trying to prove himself as an entertainer, a solo
When
entertainer.
was the first one after the split?
I think it was January 1957.
Yeah.
Okay, because Mario Lewis, they broke up in July 56.
Mm-hmm.
And so, so the first, that's a reasonable amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And their last film was premiered in December 1956. So
that was Partners, right?
Hollywood or Bust.
Hollywood or Bust.
Which I love.
Because I remember at the end of Partners, they did the montage where they shoot the end writing,
right,
and say we're going to continue to be a team. And I think that also premiered after they'd split, which was weird.
Yeah, like the day after.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So can you imagine? Can you imagine the public watching that being like, well, they broke up as a team?
Or it was either, I think I'll have to look it up, but I think it was either the day after they announced the split or the day after they.
Yeah, it's something. I remember reading about that in one of the.
Well, no, they said we're going to continue entertaining you. They just said we're just not going to be doing it together.
Yeah.
So they weren't really lying, you know.
I mean, they knew they had one more movie, so there you go. You got one more movie.
There you go. There you go.
It wasn't a lie.
I'm telling you, I've watched Hollywood or Bust, I can't tell you, and Partners a million times. Those are two of my favorites. You just cannot tell that they were going through what they were going through. You can, on their television stuff, you can tell.
Yeah.
But in the movies, you just can't. It's amazing.
Yes. I mean, the only thing was the telethon that they did together and the Today Show appearance, where you can
Yeah,
definitely
the
tell.
TV stuff, it's very obvious. The
Yeah.
Today Show was a disaster.
Yeah.
You know, Jerry was, I would have been surprised if Dean had, decked him on live television. You know?
Do either of you remember watching? I'm bringing up the Colgate show. Please forgive me, but remember the episode? There was one where they were spoofing the $64,000 question, but it was
Yeah.
$64 million, and Jerry gets thrown in that big water tank,
Yeah.
and Dean throws the scroll down, and Jerry's trying to breathe underwater, and Dean keeps pushing him down. He's like, "You're overacting. The feud
Yeah.
is over," because he's drowning under there, and Dean is
Yeah.
just submerging him in the water.
That was when was that? That was the first rift, right? In 54 or 55?
Yeah, that episode aired in 55. Yeah, that was one of
Okay.
the last,
But the
Okay.
tension was just, you could totally see that in that particular episode.
for sure.
That's, I have to watch that again. I didn't pick up any negative vibes in that particular skit.
Well, except for the
Well, that was,
drowning.
but wasn't that part of it?
Yeah,
It was kind of
Yeah.
ad-libbed. Jerry basically is like, he says, "Jokes are jokes, but I'm drowning here." And Dean just pushes him back under the water, and he's like, and he comes up and he's like, you're overacting, and he's trying
But
to
remember when Dean reads the trivia question, he pulls out in this long scroll console, and he had to read the whole thing. So that was the bit. Yeah.
yeah, it was definitely a bit, but I think he just carried it a little too far.
Now, if Dean had held his head down and didn't let him come up, then that might have been a problem.
Well, I think if I remember, Jerry comes up, and every time he comes up, Dean just immediately puts his head back down again, and he's like, "Let me take a breath here."
Yeah.
I mean, it was
All right.
it was funny. It was funny.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
So going back to the Jerry Lewis specials, like they kept, asking, are they going to appear on each other's shows, or because Dean had specials as well, and
Oh, really?
yeah, so they were obligated to fill out their remaining NBC contract, but separately. So they worked it out where they can do it separately. But also at the same time, there was like a clipping that I have where it said that suddenly Dean and Jerry in 1957 wanted to know, like or I think it was late 56 or something. They didn't want to be free of each other. Like they were suing NBC for some reason. I don't know what that was about. They were because they thought that NBC was breaching their contract or something after they had fought to be free of each other. Now they wanted to be with each other. I don't understand what was going on there, but maybe they were just confused about what was going on with each other.
Well, and I think Dean, after he split, he made not the best movie debut. I think what was it, 10,000 Bedrooms, which I haven't seen. I've heard the title song, and so I think he was struggling a little bit more. I think before
Well, he hadn't discovered his persona yet.
Yeah.
Which was, the drinking playboy. He hadn't found that character yet. You know what? I bet if we watch 10,000 Bedrooms, we should probably do that for our movie podcast. I bet it's a better film than it's regarded. Only because remember, Jerry was the bigger star of the duo, and and Dean's brilliance just kept getting overshadowed. So
I've seen it. It's okay. I don't know. It's not horrible, but
is it a romantic comedy, boy meets girl kind of thing, or?
There's a lot of things going on.
Is it kind of like a Rock Hudson sex comedy of the day?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would say it's not as good as those, but
well,
those are actually funny.
I'm not too big on The Delicate Delinquent. I just, it's not one of my go-to movies, and that's Jerry's first film after the split. Of course, it was going to be a Martin Lewis vehicle, but they just recast the role that would have been Dean. So it probably would have been better with Dean in it. I don't know, but I hate the sad sack. To me, Jerry didn't really get it right until Rockabye Baby. That's when he found his groove again. But we're supposed to be talking about television stuff.
Yeah. Well, God,
Well,
Sad Sack, I think the last half is better than it hits an interesting point like later in the film.
Okay, so I just gave up on it,
Maybe.
too soon.
I don't know. Did you watch the whole thing? No.
I did, and I don't remember. Yeah, I saw it when I was a little kid, sometime in the 80s.
Yeah, I think you should give it another try. Because I mean, I watch it, and there's some interesting parts of it. So
Okay, I'll give it another go.
do
Okay.
we remember all the? I know Jan Murray was on I think one of the first specials, and
yes.
who was the opera singer that was in The Ladies' Man?
Helen Trouble.
That's right.
She did like 2 performances. I'm thinking maybe it's 3. It was definitely 2. And his interaction with her is always really, really funny. They had a great connection together. For sure.
The bloopers for the Ladies' Man are great, with her. She had a great hearty laugh, which I think.
Yeah. Yeah. She really loved him, and like there's this one episode where he's like going underneath her dress and like playing around. And he's just goofing around with her, and like they just have such a great connection. I think they even did. I think it was that All Black Magic was one of the ones they were trying to like be Louis Prima and Keely Smith. Yeah, and then on their version of that All Black Magic before he would do it, years later. And they're just really funny and really great to watch together. Another person that I forget his name, Robert something, I think. He would always do some tap dancing little skits with this other guy who was a really good dancer. And, Jerry was showing off his tapping talent, his dance talent. And there was like this skit where Paul Lynde makes one of his first TV appearances. And then he after all those guys and Paul Lynde leaves, he breaks into a little tap routine with that other guy who did some other specials with him as well. And I really love the one scene or skit rather where he's Fred Astaire. He does a Fred Astaire routine, and he's partnering with this lady. And
this is the first Jerry Lewis special?
No, that one I think was the 1960 special.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that's the one that's in color.
Yeah, he was for his television work, which I mean, he didn't showcase it a lot in his films, but he was an amazing tap dancer and dancer. I mean, I think it was in one of the special features. It might have been the Bellboy I'm thinking of, but he was doing like rehearsing like a cane routine.
Yeah.
And throwing the cane down and trying to catch it in midair. I mean,
he did that through the 90s.
Yeah.
But it was a rehearsal bit, and he was, he was showing how he was doing the cane behind the head and everything. But I mean, it's tremendous talent, which I don't think a lot of people.
If I'm not mistaken, when he did some shows in late 2000 or early 2001, and he was still doing the cane bit then. And I know that because when he did the infamous CBS Sunday Morning bit, where he told all his the naysayers to stay in your house, they showed some footage from performing. He was still doing the cane bit then. I would love to see that all that footage.
The one thing that always amazed me was the cane thing where he jumps over the cane and then jumps back. Like he has super long arms. Like I think I feel like I've mentioned. I've just got deja vu of saying this before.
Men have longer arms than women, but I think Dean could do that too. I think he and Dean.
Yeah, he did the first part, but like remember that he like the last part he like hurt, like would pretend to fall, or he actually couldn't do it and just fell. But like Jerry would always do the back and forth with the cane.
So what's the first thing Jerry directed? and on for television?
Okay. So, well, he was going to direct a TV series with Kathleen Freeman, which never came through.
Really? What
yes.
was the premise of that show?
It was like, okay, I'm gonna have to come back to, I was gonna look that up again because I totally
That's okay.
forgot about it. But it was like, what do you call those ladies? They're not Marines.
Prostitutes? No,
No.
just kidding.
No. They're in the Marines, but they're ladies. I don't know.
Oh, wow.
I'll come back to that.
So it was going to be like
it's a surface comedy TV show with Kathleen Freeman. It was going to be an all-female cast.
And was he going to act, or he was just going to direct it?
I think he was just going to direct. I don't think he planned to act in it at all.
So
I think it did have a pilot episode, if I'm not mistaken.
That?
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm gonna look it up in a second, but I think it just didn't come through.
Well, there have been many a pilot that were shot and didn't get picked up.
Yeah, and it was in the late 50s, so it was right or late 50s, early 60s.
Wow, I would like to see that. Just see his, because TV directing and film directing are different. Because in TV directing, of course you direct the actors and you block the scenes and all that, but you also are manning the film, the camera guy. So you're in the back going constantly saying, take camera one, take camera two, wide shot, single shot, close up. Yeah. It is constant when you're doing television directing. And that's what I was paying attention to when I watched the Showtime Brothers episode.
Yeah.
In
the mid 50s, he was already discussing directing him and Dean in a serious vein instead of a comedic one, or they were going to just do a mixture of both.
Mm-hmm.
So but that never came to be, probably because Dean didn't want him to direct or whatever he had. Because remember, he was going to direct The Delicate Delinquent, or planned to, but then Dean was like, I like Jerry the actor, but I don't like Jerry the director, or whatever he was saying there.
No, if I were too much, if there hadn't been attention, I don't think Dean would have minded Jerry being his boss, basically. But because with all the tension, and then Dean has to do what Jerry tells him to do, that would have been a recipe for disaster. So, okay. Well, out of all the 6, I pick and choose with Jerry's TV specials, the 57 through 60 shows, but it seems like the best parts he always saved for the end. It was always the live performance stuff when he would get the band out and he would actually perform and do his thing. Those were always, to me, the best. That was the show for me,
Like the tap dance or the cane routine or the live dancing. Yeah, he was
Jerry doing what he does, which is entertain. Same for his NBC series that ran from 67 through 69. That second season, they pretty much just made the show Jerry Lewis performing live. That was pretty much it. And that's the secret sauce. And because I always wonder, how come I don't like Jerry Lewis's television stuff that much? And I think it's because sketch comedy, as all that stuff was, I just the writing was very middle of the road, and and Jerry Lewis was a very risque performer. Now the Colgate stuff is different. I'm really appreciating how brilliant that stuff was because of the ad libs.
On his late 60s series, Ed Simmons came back. So for the writing, anyway, on some of the stuff. But I think it was just the magic of him and Jerry. I mean, him and Dean not working together.
Mm-hmm.
And the ad lib sort of thing, because a lot of those, even when Ed Simmons and Norman Lear wrote for them. It was the ad libs that made it great. That
Yeah, and I guess that's the point I'm trying to say. I think that the writing was weak in all of it.
In the NBC series?
Pretty much, I don't know. I don't know. I'm reassessing the Colgate stuff because I'm really digging the stuff that I'm watching on that DVD collection that I just got, and I'm seeing that actually, I don't know who's coming up. I like the idea that the library bit, and where Jerry climbs to the top of the shelf to get that book that's way at the top. How the hell did they do that? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do remember that. I remember the
Great live
sketches
TV
were
gag. You know,
it looked like he was going to fall any moment, like from those little teeny chairs that he was standing on.
I think they had something reinforced that was giving them extra support that wasn't obvious to the audience, and also the bit where whenever he had a bag and he was taking stuff out of it, how he's just constantly taking stuff out, stuff like that. I always loved. You know, I think Martin and Lewis were the reason that the brilliant moments that did occur in their sketch comedy occurred.
Yeah, and like the little ongoing jokes like that, what you just mentioned with like the getting things out of a bag, and like the one with the swimming thing with where he's bringing so many things out, and then he pulls a man's head out of there. He's like, "Dad, you didn't have to come along too."
What was the one Martin Lewis bit on the Colgate bit where another actor came out and I think it said lifeguard, and apparently lifeguard was supposed to be a big punchline. It didn't get a laugh.
Oh no, it was the detective.
Okay. So anyway, it didn't
it was something with police detective, but
it didn't get a laugh.
Like,
so Dean saved it by saying, he said, "Hey, is that spelled right?" And the guy said, "Yeah." He said, "Okay, it's just a joke then." Okay.
Yeah.
You know, that saved it. You know, I love it.
Also,
go ahead.
Oh, so with Colgate being with it live, I think that even added to the brilliance of it. I mean, I saw a few episodes of Jerry's 67, I think, show. I think they had a DVD release and it was a horrible DVD release. It was butchered shows, but the sketches were more a miss for me. There was maybe a few brilliant segments in it, but I think the later ones were better because of the stand-up, as you were saying.
I will say whatever they put on the DVD was not a good representation of the show at all. Like,
no, I figured that it was very butchered. The opening was totally gone. I think it was just select sketches, but the sketches they chose weren't really strong in my opinion.
The opening is really annoying on the DVD. Like,
yes,
just stop.
They got it right.
Just have it normal.
In the second season, I enjoyed watching those a lot more. And I wonder if he was taking his cues from the success of the Dean Martin show, because I noticed that the second season of Jerry's NBC series in the late 60s, it resembled a little bit more of the Dean Martin show, at least certain components of it. And I think that was just that was a smarter strategy to just put Jerry in a situation as himself, and he would do whatever sketch. But there were some, I wish I could recall them now, but there were some pretty interesting social commentary bits more in that second season as well. And so I don't know. I'm just highly.
He also did one of the sketches he did was definitely his character, which would be the same in Which Way to the Front. Have you seen that episode, Audi? You need.
I have. Yep. Oh. I have seen that. Yeah. I'm really, if I'm going to watch sketch comedy, it needs to be good. And and I grew up loving the Carol Burnett show, but I would say only 40% of the sketches on that show I like, and then the rest I just tolerated. Sketch comedy is very hard to do, especially if it's a weekly show.
Yeah.
I think the secret of like shows like Saturday Night Live is because you have so many talented performers who are all writing their own material. So that's why it was easier to sustain a 90-minute weekly live show, because you had so many brilliant people writing their own material.
And when Jerry did have the ad-lib moments on his 67, 69 show, it was funny. Like, he should have had, I mean, it was just because there was kind of a lack of spontaneous things sometimes. Sometimes there were, and that was funny. And, you know, they had moments where, like, where him and Janet Leigh were breaking character, or him and Lawrence Harvey were breaking character. Lawrence Harvey was kind of unexpected for me as a good co-star, and his the sketches that they did on the one episode. They have, like, where they're gold miners, and then another one where they're in a saloon together, and they did really a good job together, I would say. And Lawrence Harvey proved that he could do, you know, good comedy. He was funny.
You know, going back, because I've been listening to podcasts. I mean, Dick Cavett was on, I think it was Gilbert Gottfried's podcast, and he wrote for Jerry for his failed ABC show in '63. But you know, he wrote a bit. I think he said, you know, because sometimes Jerry could get a little out there with his, you know, ad libs, and you know, of course, that show bombed. But Dick Cavett talked about how they wrote an entire segment where Jerry was supposed to come into the theater, but he was locked out. So Dick Cavett wrote in this, like, entire bit where Jerry comes to his own theater, he's locked out, he can't get in, and he was like, it was really great, and for some reason Jerry liked it, and then we didn't end up shooting it, which he says, I don't know why, but it was a really good bit. And I was like, man, I would have liked to see that.
Yeah.
And a 2-hour show every week. And that was it seemed like there was no writing going on. And Jerry, a couple years, even admitted, he said he forgot, he was so worried about the technical aspects and everything, he forgot the show.
Yeah.
Where's the funny?
But to have, like, I mean, Dick Cavett wrote for, like, the Tonight Show, I think the Joey Bishop Show. I mean, huge writer back then. And I think he mentioned a few other writers. And for some reason, a lot of those sketches or ideas didn't get put in there. And so I don't know if that was the same thing as the late '60s show. Who knows?
Like, I know Neil Simon and then Mel Brooks did those episodes in the late '50s, where, I mean, it's hard to tell, like, which skits that they did. I think I could tell the Neil Simon one. I would have to take a look at it again, but I'm sure that, I know Jerry had issues with Mel Brooks for whatever reason, and that came to a head on the Ladies' Man.
Well, in the interest of time, let's jump to the mid '80s to talk about when Jerry directed that episode of the Showtime sitcom Brothers. You know, I remember seeing Entertainment Tonight do a featurette on Jerry directing that, and I was watching Brothers at the time, but for whatever reason I missed the actual episode. So thanks to the great Bloodhound Cat, she found it. So I finally seen it. It's a great episode where Robert Stack plays Philip Charles McKenzie's dad, and Donald is, to me, Donald was really he wasn't even a main character in the show, but he was the most popular character on the show, and so much of the writing centered around him. He was so fantastic. And you would think that he was gay in real life, but he actually wasn't. He played that character. He queened it up. And I was noticing, okay, what's going to jump out at me that I feel like Jerry definitely put his stamp on. And there are two moments. For when they run into the restroom to make sure Donald's not in the bathroom killing himself, and when Robin Riker says, "I didn't know you were Jewish." Yeah. I know.
I burst out laughing. I know.
And there was another one, and it was a more serious part when Donald dresses up in drag, pretending to be a nurse to see Robert Stack in the hospital, and then when Robert Stack is telling the story about when he dressed up as a sheriff when Donald was 5 years old, and then the part where he's saying what he said to him and he's mouthing it. I said, that's Jerry.
Yeah.
That was Jerry. Those are two things I definitely feel Jerry contributed there.
that whole scene, that whole last scene when he's where the father and son are talking together, and he's in drag, the son's in drag. That was hilarious. That, I mean,
Yeah.
that was a comedy gold scene right there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I laughed a lot through the whole episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it was, you know, I haven't watched the other shows, episodes, obviously, but I like how the show like represented, like, yeah, there's one gay guy that's more flamboyant.
Well, there were
There's
two
one
gay
guy. Yeah, the brother that's more,
You know,
you
that
know,
show at the time.
he's just
See,
a macho
today,
guy.
if you
One
see a
macho
show
guy, one.
today, if you see a show today with a gay character, like, okay, gay character. But back then, I am telling you, that was a big deal. And I actually had to sneak and watch the show because I was like, you know, it was like, okay, validation for me. And the only time that I could watch it was when my mom was gone because she had the TV with cable in her room. And so I would have to sneak and watch, you know, because that was like, and I just thought the show was absolutely phenomenal. But I'm telling you, it was a big, big, big deal for a sitcom to have two lead gay characters.
Yeah.
And it was very validating.
Yeah, and the more macho gay guy is the main character. He's one of the actual brothers in the show, and then the other guy, Donald, is that the story this episode was about. Is, I guess he was a side character. I don't know. He might have been a main character, but he wasn't one of the brothers. But yeah, like he was really great, and I'm glad the show ran for 5 seasons.
Yeah,
Really,
I thought it ran more like 3 seasons. I didn't realize it ran through '89. So, but again, it was revolutionary television at the time, and I remember Jerry Lewis being involved in a lot of promotion for Showtime at the time. His Showtime's slogan at the time was "We make excitement" or "Let's get excitement" or something like that. And I remember Jerry Lewis saying, you know, Showtime makes excitement for me and all that. And Kat, this might be another one of Audi's fuzzy memories, but I am almost positive that around that same time, the Showtime aired a Jerry Lewis concert called On Stage Jerry Lewis. And you would think, okay, it was probably the thing that he taped in '84. That was the home video.
Yeah.
But I have this memory that the show was actually a 1981 Vegas performance. And I've never seen that show.
There was like one from like 79 or 80 that I had like no idea existed.
Maybe that
was
what
like,
it is.
It was either HBO or Showtime. I need to go. It was called Standing Room Only. And I think it might have been, it was either HBO or Showtime. I was like, whoa, I had no idea.
But I remember Showtime, because I was like, I've got to see this. And I was at a neighbor's house and they had cable and it was on. So I saw like maybe a couple of minutes of it. And all I remember is a bit where he was doing one of his dancing routines and a lady in the audience tried to hand him a rose while he's performing. And he said he acknowledges her, but he's performing. That's all I remember, you know? So get on that, Cat. But I was thinking maybe it's the 1984 thing, you know?
It could be. And I have the 1984. It was off air. It was off YouTube for some reason. It used to be on YouTube.
Yeah, and all like 8 or 9 parts or whatever. Yeah. So
yes, I have someone sending it to me, but it's on VHS, so I have to like, you know, record it and stuff.
And unfortunately, I can't even like go by the material to determine what year the show was because Jerry Lewis pretty much never changed his act after the early '70s, you know.
Yeah. I mean, some things like he changed a little bit.
Well, in '84, the airline bit was good. What was it? The fat ass airline bit. That was pretty funny. That was fun. That was funny stuff.
So going back to the Jerry Lewis directed TV show with Kathleen Freeman. It was called Permanent Waves, and it was he directed an episode, a pilot episode in November 1960, and he shopped it around to various networks, and none of them picked it up. So it was going to be a naval reservist comedy with an all-female cast. And yeah, it was called Permanent Waves, and never picked up. So
would that have been groundbreaking? Because I don't think there was many all-female star television at that time. I don't
yeah,
remember any.
yeah, and
Remember that movie from the 30s called The Women? Are y'all familiar with that movie? It was made in the 30s called The Women. Have you ever seen that?
I haven't seen it, but I've heard of it.
yeah, it's a very funny movie.
But isn't the dialogue so weird? You have to like really be on your toes because they speak so fast.
Yeah, and a lot of screwball comedies, that's just how it is. It's back and forth, and you know.
Well, I wouldn't consider it a screwball comedy.
Well, I think, yeah, I wouldn't consider it a screwball comedy either, but a lot of those, like Rosalind Russell, I mean, her scenes are kind of in that vein to some degree, where like there's like the cat fight where they're all fighting each other and biting each other. It's really funny, that fight scene.
Saw it back in the 90s because the person I was dating at the time said, "Oh, this is a gay essential, and you know, if you don't see this, then you got to revoke your gay card and all that other shit." And I was like, "Okay, you know." But, so I've never seen Fried Green Tomatoes either, and I haven't seen Grease. So you know,
Fried green tomatoes is a
oh,
gay
that's another gay classic. You know, pretty much anything with a bunch of women in it. You know,
Oh.
95.
Steel Magnolias, is that?
Oh, maybe, yeah. Steel Magnolias. That's definitely one. Yes.
I don't know. Fried green tomato seems an unusual choice.
Okay, maybe I'm thinking of Steel Magnolias then, but I thought Fried Green Tomatoes was. Isn't that with Shirley MacLaine and?
No, that
That's with that lady from Driving Miss Daisy. I forgot her name.
Terms of Endearment is, maybe that's it.
No, no. It's
No,
either okay. I must be thinking of Steel Magnolias then. I don't know.
Steel Magnolias has Sally Field in it.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
No, Shirley MacLaine's in that.
yeah.
Pretty sure Fried Green Tomatoes and Steel Magnolias are considered like those are go-to movies for the gays. So, but you know, I'm a rocker, so you know. Now, you want to talk about Jimi Hendrix and Eric Clapton and Paul McCartney and James Brown? Come to me for that, you know. But no, I've never seen Grease. I mean, I remember once I was in a bar and I said to a bunch of guys I never saw Grease, and it was just like this simultaneous, unanimous, you know. Anyway.
Let's switch gears and talk about Jerry directing the Ben Casey episode. I just saw that. I had never seen it, so I just saw that, and I was I was pretty impressed. That I think was one of his early TV directed episodes, right? Because I don't think he directed much television
except for the permanent
pilot.
Yeah.
And
was he approached to do that, by the way?
I think so. You mean Ben Casey?
Ben Casey.
Yeah, I just wonder how that came into fruition.
Well, I know he used to be friends with Vince Edwards, who played Ben Casey back in the 50s, and he was in his home movie directed.
He was in some of those?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I mean, not the ones that we've seen, but he was supposedly one of the people that were in those. So.
Oh, you mean that secret home video with him, Jerry, and Patty that no one is supposed to? I'm kidding.
I mean, I don't know.
I think wasn't it one of the actors? Didn't Jerry not get along with on set because I think they
Vince
didn't
Edwards.
take it seriously? Was it Vince Edwards? I thought it was the other doctor.
I think maybe they had like him and like Tony Curtis and Jerry had their blowout, and they used to be such good friends, and then maybe I don't know why he and Vince Edwards didn't get along though. Probably egos, having
Well, Jerry was a piece of work back then, so
The episode kind of reminded me of, like, in some incidences, he was a real buddy love. I remember that him and his date are in the restaurant, and the doctor comes up and he says, "Would you like to join us?" And he's like, "Sure." And he's like, "Well, we were just leaving," and just real. I was like, boy, he's just a, a, a real buddy love character right there. But he did direct the dramatic moments, I thought, very well. The speech that he gives when he runs out of the operating room into the stairwell about how, they taught me how to work with my hands in medicine school, but they didn't teach me how to work with people, which I thought was very well done.
Yeah, it that scene in the stairwell like always gets to me, and as well as the scene after where he's confronting Ben Casey and he's like, I'm stripped bare, like the mask is off. I don't have my comedy to like pull me through this anymore, because his character is, struggling with, like, he's just a joker, and he treats every situation with comedy instead of seriousness. And his girlfriend's getting frustrated about it, the doctors are getting frustrated about it, and he just blows everything off, because it's a mask. And I think that was like a metaphor for like what he did in real life. I mean, he didn't carry it to that extreme. Obviously, he was serious a lot of times.
Who wrote the episode?
Huh?
Who wrote the episode?
I think he did, didn't it?
No,
He didn't. Okay.
I'll have to look to see who wrote that
well,
one.
That the monologue at the end, that sounds like something very.
I think he put some little inserts here and there, because some of that dialogue was definitely him. Either it was ad-libbed or he wrote it himself. But I think Vince Edwards, like, from what I've heard, like, he was abusive towards women, so I wouldn't be surprised that he was a jerk on set. So I think they had
most men who are abusive to women are pretty much assholes. I'm related to one, so yeah, I know that for a fact. So, but then I want to ask you, as a director, a guy who actually knows how to direct a film, what are your observations in terms of camera angles and takes and all that stuff in the Ben Casey that jumped out at you?
Definitely watching it sometimes, I mean, I'll look at it at the time frame, but a lot of those television shows, sometimes they're in one scene or two scenes, so the shots are very tight. There's not a lot of creative freedom to move around a lot, which I would like to do. I don't like to just do select scenes. I think in some of the dramatic scenes, especially like in the stairwell scene, I think that was very well done, because you had him going to the elevator, you had him trying to get away from death, from the responsibility of being a doctor. So I mean, he rushes out, he knocks over the pan with the nurse is carrying, which I thought was a great element to do. Running to the elevator, if the elevator's full of people running, there was a lot of movement in that shot. The rest of the film, it was very, I felt there wasn't a lot of, I think there's the restaurant scene. But so I do like the more complex shots, and so I'll try to look for it. Like Jerry's Space Force episode, that was an interesting film, and I
haven't seen that yet. Y'all got to tell me about it. I've been waiting to hear about this.
You can wait for that, but like some of the scenes in that, I was like, okay, like it didn't remind me of Jerry's technical style at all. Like, I mean, it reminded me of like a very campiness. So the Ben Casey episode, drastic change, but not as he would. I think if he would have shot it as a film, it would have been totally differently. But since it was television, you're kind of restricted.
Yeah, he's definitely limited there. The writers were James E. Moser, who was the creator, and Chester Krumholz. I don't know. Those were the writers on that episode.
And also, it's interesting to note that James Best is his buddy on the episode, and I think he wasn't really in a lot of motion pictures, or I mean, I think mostly TV work. And by 66 or 65, he was contemplating leaving acting when he accepted to be on Free on a Couch, because Jerry, I think, talked him into it. And
Yeah.
then because he was about ready to just retire from acting because I don't think he was making it. So it was quite interesting to see him be his kind of second banana on that episode of Ben Casey.
Which makes me wonder, what was James Best doing between Three on the Couch and when he got that role of a lifetime as Sheriff Roscoe P. Coltrane on the Dukes of Hazzard? Because I watched that show. I was a loyal viewer of the Dukes of Hazzard, and James Best, no one could play that character better than, I mean, he absolutely created a great character. I know we're getting off the track here a little bit, but I don't know if y'all know about that show, but James Best killed it. He was a big star because of that role. You probably don't even know what the hell I'm talking about, do you? Okay.
No,
I know. I know the show, but I have not seen it yet. But I do, now that you mentioned, I do remember that James Best was in that. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, yeah, Tom Wopat and John Schneider, they were definitely big sex symbol stars. But I'm telling you, Sheriff Rock, that show would have been nothing without James Best as the sheriff. You know, that's who I liked. And his deputy, guy who played Enos. So, you know, but yeah, to me, James Best was a huge
he wasn't bad acting. Like even Three on a Couch with its quirks, I mean, he does do a great second banana to Jerry. Even though it's not like the heyday Paramount movies, but he does a great job, you know, doing the shtick. And you can see a little bit of that in the Ben Casey episode when they're clowning around being the doctors. You can see a lot of that. I was like, whoa, he's in this. I had no idea.
Yeah, they have good chemistry together. And I think he was doing just TV and movies between all those years. So that, you know, he just continued that.
I feel like James Best was also in a Western. I don't know if it was John Wayne or something. I've seen him in a Western, I believe. Something.
I think it's Fire Creek. There was one where he was like a bad guy. I think it was the Fire Creek one.
Before Dukes of Hazzard?
Yeah.
Okay. Good for him.
Yeah, and then I mean, I think Jerry's acting started to his serious acting really. The Jazz Singer, I think he did a decent job for the time, but you can see the growth from there to the Ben Casey episodes for sure. And I mean, his character is, you know, going through a lot of struggles, but I think, you know, Jerry related to those struggles, and, you know, he brought out some of himself in the episode for sure. He always brings out a little bit.
Definitely in the Ben Casey episode when he's getting upset at the nurses and stuff, you can kind of see similarities with the King of Comedy, that intensity. Some scenes I felt he was a little stronger in than others, but
I think towards the whole last part of the episode is definitely
towards the beginning of the episode, he reminds me a lot of like a Buddy Love, and then about middle to the end, I feel it sells it very dramatically.
I think he's kind of like being a jerk in some ways because, like, going back, it is a connection to Jerry because he's trying to like mask how he's feeling.
Yeah.
Right.
And it comes off as, you know, a little boy like throwing a tantrum kind of sometimes, like, or just like having these outbursts sometimes of attitude.
All right.
But yeah.
Well, in the interest of time, so we touched on the Colgate stuff. We touched on his first specials after the Mark Lewis split. We've talked about Ben Casey. We talked about his late 60s series. I want to touch on two things for sure before the clock runs out. I want to hear about this Space Force episode. And Kat, you know how Jerry came to be connected to the show. And then hopefully y'all can talk a little bit. We can talk about Wise Guy, which might be his finest TV performance.
Okay, so Superforce was created by James McNamara, who produced hardly working and saved that film from being in the same situation as The Day the Clown Cried. And so, I think Jerry did this series for this episode for Superforce as a favor to James McNamara, because I mean, let's face it, this is totally out of left field for Jerry. A superhero type film, and I know later on, Jay.
I don't recall any promotion. I don't recall hearing about it on Entertainment Tonight or anything.
Yeah, I had no idea.
I'm laughing because after I watched the episode, I was like, whoa, this is completely out of left field. I mean, even the storyline, because I mean, Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis were, with the mob and stuff. And a lot of the scenes reminded me of Which Way to the Front when Jan Murray has to pay off the mob or whatever. The whole episode is kind of reminded me kind of like that. Because
I know nothing about the show. So what's the premise of the show? Basically,
it's 2020. Times are tough. This guy's tougher, and he's a superhero, and he has lightning out of. I think he can also. I don't know. I think I saw him.
Who played that? The superhero.
Ken Landy. Hold on, just a second. I think it's Ken Landy. I don't.
Okay, so it takes place on Earth in 2020. But he's a superhero.
Yes.
So,
Lance.
What are your observations? Okay. So, can you tell from any other episode of that show that Jerry directed this episode?
So there's the joke where he's like, the owner of the hotel. It's it's not a casino, but everything is in Vegas, but it's a hotel. That's like a dance hall type thing, but the guy is emceeing and saying it's definitely a staple Jerry Lewis joke that he used in a lot of his shows. Let's not think of it as our place or I can't do the joke.
So okay, so is it
basically the punchline? The punchline is Jerry yells out, "So let's sell it."
Okay.
It's like, think of it as our place.
Now, is the show itself? Does it contain elements of comedy, or is it like totally serious, like Wise Guy?
It's comedy.
It's completely comedic. It's also really? It reminds me. Like kind of campy in a lot of aspects.
I would say that all superhero type shows at that point, and even Captain America in the 90s was extremely campy. It was so bad. Superhero stuff besides the films were really campy and just cheesy effects, awful stuff. But I think people liked it at the time, but I can't fault him for the technology.
No.
At the time,
it was 1990.
So they look low budget.
There's a scene at the end where all the guys come out and they're shooting up the place, and there's 6 guys in a row, and the superhero man jumps out and he's shooting all 6 guys, and it's one shot, and the guys get shot down, and I'm like, you could have had enough time to fire again on him. But just the scenes were done in such a comedic way. I was like, this is so, I would never know that this was a Jerry Lewis directed episode. Never. If I didn't see his name, I would have no idea. I can kind of see a few scenes where maybe, the comedy, but it would have gone over my head.
One part that I burst out laughing at, the guy with the big wheel truck that has this weird laugh that is not really.
Oh, the over the top laugh.
Yeah. Over to the top laugh guy.
Audi, way over the top. Way over the top.
Okay.
So weird. Anyway, he pulls.
Do you think that was Jerry's idea? You think that was Jerry's idea?
I don't even know.
And he has a way over the top laugh and drives a huge jacked up monster truck. So you got to see this episode. You got to see this to know what we're talking about.
The Superforce guy picks the guy, electrocutes him in the car, and pulls him out and throws him out of the truck. And he's like, your car insurance is gonna go up after that, or something. Like, I was like, what?
You know, this sounds like maybe a what they call a stoner show, where it's so awesomely bad that stoners, they love to watch stuff like this, and just because the stuff that's not supposed to be funny is funny.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I'm not a anyway.
When him and his friend, because the Superforce guy is also like just a cop in his real life, and his friend comes with him into the club, and then the lady's like, "Are you two together?" And he's like, "No, he's too short for me," or something like that. I feel like that might have been a Jerry type thing.
You know what? That's possible, because that reminds me of the bit in Hook, Line, and Sinker, the movie, when Peter Lawson and Jerry are trying to, like, they fake Jerry's death, but they have to find some court so they can claim to be Jerry's character's dead body. So they go to this morgue, and then they pull out from the tomb, and it's a black guy, and Jerry says, "Too tall."
Yeah.
I love that. God, I love that.
And then Jerry, as I said, Jerry makes that vocal cameo in that joke with the "Let's sell it." He shouts out from the audience.
Okay, well, you know what? I actually want to see this. I thought it was like I was thinking it was going to be like a sci-fi kind of thing, and I hate sci-fi. Okay, so I have to watch it, but I actually want to watch this now.
It's not really sci-fi. It's more.
No, good. I'm glad it's not sci-fi.
Yeah.
It's just like 2020, and people are running amok. So
I want to see it. You did send it to me, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Huh. Okay.
Yesterday. I sent it to you yesterday.
You did?
Yeah, on your other email.
So in the interest of time, Wise Guy, which I haven't seen the show, but I do remember watching the select Lewis scenes, which he did fabulous in.
Yeah.
He played the
was it a dry cleaner?
He's a clothes. They're selling clothes, and some of it's like black market stuff. But he's like not a designer, but they have a whole clothing business where they're mass producing these things.
Okay.
And Ron Silver plays his son, and Stanley Tucci is the bad guy. He's a really awful person in this.
Yeah.
And he kills Jerry's son.
Yeah.
And Jerry comes after him at some point, wanting to kill him. And there's like really emotional scenes. There's a scene where his son is missing he wasn't killed at that point. And just the range of emotions.
Yeah. I watched it. I remember watching at least the first 2 episodes in prime time when they originally aired. I don't know how I found out about it, but I just was so thrilled to see Jerry in that show, because I was already a regular viewer of Wise Guy at the time.
Mm-hmm. And he's on there for 5 episodes. This is.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Yeah, I would say it's a definite watch for anybody who's a fan. There's some comedic moments, but it's mostly serious. Jerry plays. Mm-hmm. I would say Jerry does play himself to a degree, but then there's a lot of. I think the moment where he's like going to shoot like Stanley Tucci and he's after him is really intense. Or he comes into his office to kill him. Also, there's just a lot of tense moments, and some of them made me cry, to be honest.
All right. Well, before I forget to ask, so Jerry's done all this television, but yet he is also well documented that he admitted himself that he always put down television, but yet he did so much of it. Do you think that was just rooted in his own lack of success in having a regular show?
I think like sitcom type stuff, not sitcom, but like the variety show type stuff, I think was just out of him being bitter to some degree that, he hadn't, I mean, because he kept trying it.
And what's interesting to me is I always wonder why he never, I mean, and guest stars in the 60s, 70s, and 80s were on a lot of sitcoms. He never really was on a lot of sitcoms. I mean, he did Mad About You. But for sitcoms, I don't even know if people are interested in getting him when there were shows with huge guest star lineups.
Here's where, I wish if I were I always want to call Jerry Elvis. I don't know why, but if I were Jerry's manager or some sort of creative consultant for him, I think he just picked a lot of projects that he should not have picked. He should not have I'm not saying he was taking offers left and right, because he was the biggest movie star in the world for, like 8 years or so in a row. So, but the approach that I felt Jerry should have made was basically coming through the back door. And what I mean by that is, what made Bill Murray so respected after he left Saturday Night Live and did his movies and Ghostbusters. But in Bill Murray's later part of his career, the secret sauce of his career is that he picked great guest supporting roles that just gave him all these opportunities to steal scenes. Because, a lot of Bill Murray's best roles are movies where he's actually not the lead, the leading actor in it. But everybody remembers Bill Murray as being the best support. And I think Jerry should have focused more. And again, another example, his best home runs was when he filled in after Jack Parr left the Tonight Show, or the times when he substituted for Johnny Carson, when he could just come in and be that great relief pitcher and not stay on too long, dazzle him, do his thing. I think he should have done more of that. When he had his own TV show in the early 60s, Jerry is somebody that we didn't need to consume in a weekly TV bit. He's too over the top, and that can just get old after a while. So I just think he should have just picked his moments better. And also, I just find sketch comedy to be boring. Getting back to his NBC series, the sketches were just way too long. They were just way too long, and they weren't that freaking funny to begin with. If you're going to do a really long sketch, then he should have had top of the line A-list guest stars on the show with him. Top guys. I think
to some degree he did. Like Janet Leigh and.
No, I'm talking. No,
Who's a top of the line person?
He should have had other great comedians.
Well, he had Tony Fields, who he had pretty great chemistry with, and she was really funny. Joanne Worley was hilarious in a lot of those episodes. I mean, he did have.
No, I'm talking like he should have had Sammy on the show with him. He should have had Frank on the show with him. He should have been people on his level. That's what he should have been doing.
I'm not sure if Frank was like doing TV shows at that point, other than Dean's show he did.
Jerry just should have had just the right people on the show, and
he should have had Elvis.
Well, Elvis's manager wouldn't let him do any Elvis did a TV special when he got out of the army in 1960, and didn't do any television again until the end of 1968, which was his comeback special, which was a triumph.
Before we go, Raymond Burr. Have you seen the one episode with Raymond Burr that he did on the Jerry Lewis show in 68-ish?
No. Did he play Ironside? Did he play his Ironside character?
Well, he kind of like Raymond Burr is being himself, but they have really good connection together. And like Jerry was like licking his face. He literally licked his face at some point, and I was like,
Jerry licked a lot of faces.
He licked a lot of faces. But yeah, he wasn't afraid. Like
he did.
I remember You remember the bit where he goes on Carson and he slips his hand over and holds Carson's hands, and he's just rubbing Carson's fingers, and Carson looks down and like, what are you doing? And Jerry's just nonchalant, just rubbing his hand, and he's looking into his eyes, and Carson's like uncomfortable, like, what are you doing? You know, it was all shtick, but it was hilariously funny.
Oh.
I think it was from like 71. It was from 1971.
You know, I would have liked to see more moments. Because see, what I like about Johnny and Jerry, that's chemistry. When Johnny would come on to Jerry's telethons in the 70s, Johnny was one of the few people who would even dare to give Jerry a dose of his own medicine. You know, when back on the 10th anniversary of the Tonight Show, when Jerry's talking about how he never gets to see Joey or Jack or Ed or whatever, and Johnny Carson said, "Well, maybe nobody likes you." Who else would do that?
Well,
You know, and I think
also,
Jerry needed more of that kind of banter.
Yeah.
Somebody on his level.
It's interesting that a lot of people claim that the 10th anniversary show isn't like the best show, but I think you have a huge lineup of stars. But it's interesting to note that Carson had on some of the biggest guest hosts. Joey Bishop was a huge guest host.
George Burns was there. Wasn't Bob Hope there?
Hosted a lot of times, so it's interesting that he has all these guest hosts with him for that anniversary, and it was kind of a montage show, but it's still a lot of big.
I love that segment. I love the segment. I mean, that's Hollywood show business there. Seeing all those guys interacting, I love it. I wish. That's something that I would have loved to see more of Jerry and with his peers, because I just think they brought the best out of him, not a bunch of B-level co-stars who couldn't really challenge Jerry. I just felt that if Jerry had done more things with people who were his equal or near him, that superstar status, that's when Jerry shines. Because when Johnny Carson and Jerry would banter with each other, Jerry had to be on his toes, but Johnny Carson could call him out. You know, when Jerry, for instance, would do, you know how you would take a microphone? Oh, I just happen to have one here. And he would go, oh, like that. And, you know, and Johnny Carson would go, going for the immaterial, you know.
What do you think about with Jerry with Andy Williams? He did that guest appearance on Andy Williams, and he did the tap dance number. And
okay, anything musical and dancing, Jerry hit it out of the park with.
Yeah, I remember him and Andy Williams did that terrific dance routine, and then that's when he had the fall. They came out and they did the whole great routine. It was actually a rehash of a Colgate comedy skit that he done with Dean, and then he had that fall.
Yeah, I don't think I've even seen that full episode. So
check it out on my channel.
I will do that. Is
that on your channel? Yeah, I remember seeing. I got like a terrible bootleg copy of it, which was not the best quality, but.
So, we need to let the folks know for a future Total Film Critic podcast that the three of us also do together. We are going to try and arrange a watch along where we are going to watch the same movie together, and we're going to stream it or film it or whatever, and then we'll upload it. So. Are we going to do them one more time or something?
Yeah.
One more time. Yeah. Which we could do It's Only Money too. I do have that, by the way.
Well, thank you for taking almost 2 days to answer my text about that. I really appreciate it. It made me feel
I've been so busy. I'm so sorry.
All right. Okay.
I will say Don Rickles was Jerry's equal, and he appeared on.
And again, and when Don Rickles was on the 2003 telethon, the way that is some of the best television in history. Yeah. What he called Jerry, because Jerry was bloated from the prednisone, and Don was like, well, what's all this twitching you're doing? You look like a Jewfish, you know. That's the kind of stuff I like. You know, that roast, when they roast each other, that's what I'm getting at. You know, that's when Jerry shined.
Yeah, for sure. Quickly.
He's not a home entertainment kind of guy, even though he always, denounced vulgarity. But Jerry he did do adult humor. That was his thing. What made people love Martin and Lewis in the 40s and 50s, those ad libs, I mean, they were raunchy.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that's why I don't like his television stuff, because it's written for middle America, this middle of the road, safe family humor. And that's not Jerry.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he when he got away with naughty stuff, that was like the peak of his thing. He tries to pretend he didn't like blue humor or
Right.
say that like Dean liked that or whatever, but no, that's Jerry. He liked
Yeah.
nice. I mean, just listen to his outtakes on the Caddy outtakes.
Oh,
And it shows he liked blue.
And the outtake on the Tonight Show with Ed with the sledding equipment. You haven't seen that one?
you've mentioned it before, but I keep forgetting that. Can you send me that, y'all, please?
Oh
You know?
yes.
Imagine a ski slope. I'm doing enough imagining it as it is.
Well, the day is going to come when all three of us are actually going to be together in the same room, and we can really do something, a great project together. Nothing's firm yet, but folks, Audi is planning on relocating to the West Coast, and we're going to do a complete upheaval of my life, and we will see how that goes. And Thad, Kat, did you know that Thad and I want to write and direct a film together?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sounds very exciting.
We may need a broad, to play a check.
Yes.
So if you know anybody, let us know. I kid.
I don't know anybody.
So
you're still a Purdy's pretty good.
What are we going to discuss next time? We're going to do a watch along. We have 2 minutes left.
Yeah. I would say let's go into because we didn't have time to go into the 80s episode of the 5 episodes.
And we didn't get into Jerry Lewis hosting Saturday Night Live. Yeah. So I want to talk about that because that is particularly special for me, and I'll tell you guys why. Well, because the same weekend that he did that, that was a pivotal moment in my life. So we'll definitely talk about that. But
and they put it all into the same time anyway, so they're all 1983, 84.
No, the watch along is going to be for a future Total Film Critic podcast. So I'd like to pick the next topic for the next Jerry thing, if you don't mind.
Okay, go for it.
Who's gonna do the outro?
Well, how about this? We all just say, we count to 3, and we all at the same time say goodbye, everybody. All right?
Just be simple.
Wait. 1, 2, 3.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, everybody.